It's time to take advantage of investment opportunities. With your NCB Online access, you can open your investment account online in less than 10 minutes using Go IPO. Simply log in to Go IPO using your NCB Online banking credentials. Provide us with the required personal information, upload your proof of address. And that's it. You will instantly receive an email with your account information. No account opening deposit required. Investment opportunities are waiting for you. Visit goipo.jncb.com today.
Your business is your world. Technology can make your business more profitable. At CNW Business, we understand your challenges and we provide solutions and support, all scalable, to support business at every level. Data center hosting, security and data protection, sales and business solutions, e-commerce transaction support. Just imagine what we could do for your efficiency and profitability. CNW Business. We are IT.
It's not every day that one can sit back and welcome not one, but 5 rock stars. Today, Tuesday, January the 26th, I am doing just that. My name is Novia MacDonald-White, and I welcome you on behalf of the Jamaica Observer to our first webinar for 2021, Charting Your Financial Course, powered by NCB Capital Markets Limited and Flow. The 2 hours will literally fly today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our 5 rock stars. Natasha Main, for obvious reasons, known as the Vogue Attorney. Ian Levy, Chairman, Ian K. Agencies. Michael Lee Chin, Chairman, Portland Holdings. Wayne Purbu, entrepreneur and co-founder, the Onyx Initiative. Wesley J. Hall, Executive Chair and Founder, Kingsdale Advisors, Founder and Executive Chair, Black North Initiative. Plus, of course, when you have 5 rock stars, there's bound to be breaking news. So wait for it. IABC Toronto has just named Wes Hall the 2020 Communicator of the Year. So stick around for some more breaking news. So congrats, Wes. So, without further ado, let us start our webinar, Charting Your Financial Course. Belief in self, right, Natasha?
Absolutely, belief in self.
Natasha Main is the founder of the Main Law Firm, which is based in Florida and is one of the country's few women-led law firms. Dubbed the Vogue Attorney, for obvious reasons, look at her jacket. She's a family and matrimonial lawyer with proud Jamaican roots, who graduated from the University of Florida College of Law with a Juris Doctorate with honors. Belief in self, over to you. Thank you very much for joining us, Natasha.
You are absolutely welcome, and I am delighted to be here. Well, this is one of the topics that I speak about all the time. And I think it's so very important because the first step of success is, of course, you have to believe that you can become successful. Believing that you can do it, believing that you deserve it, and believing that you can get it is actually the first steps that everyone needs to have in order to accomplish this. I always say that being successful is never for the faint of heart because there's so many obstacles that you have to get over and overcome, that if you just believe that everything is going to be smooth sailing and everything is going to be fine and everything is going to be, you're never going to have any defeats or failures and things like that. That's not the way it goes. And if being successful was easy, everybody in this world would be successful. And one of the things I tell everyone likes to say, well, I don't have the famous last name. I'm not from Uptown. I'm not from these places. But the thing about it is, I'm from the inner city of Miami, the inner city, a place called Carol City, which is known as Miami Gardens right now. If anyone knows Carol City, it's like one of the worst places to ever grow up. But I knew from a very young age that Natasha Maine deserved more. I knew that I deserved more. And that little burning feeling in me made me realize that I'm going to get out of Carol City and I'm going to be successful. And I'm going to overcome every obstacle possible to give myself a better life, because I feel that I am worthy of all of God's abundance. So with that said, I decided I went to New York for undergrad, 4 years. I met a group of people. I had to get out of my environment. I met some of the most phenomenal people in life, people that read books, people that were so out of the box. And I realized that these are the people that I needed to be around. These were kids that, I mean, they traveled the world already. They did so many different things that I wasn't exposed to. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to be a game changer. And I'm going to make sure that my children have these things. I decided that I was going to stand out. And I said I was going to be the obvious choice for anyone in this world that is looking for a divorce attorney. And that is how I said to myself, I'm going to make sure that I am the one that anyone looks for in this world for the best divorce attorney that exists. So Natasha, what does it mean by me being the game changer, right? I decided that I was going to give my clients a world-class experience. When they come to my office, I show so much empathy and so much love towards my clients. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody really likes an attorney until they're in trouble. We don't have the best reputations because there's a minority of lawyers that have made it bad for the majority of lawyers that are actually very good lawyers. For me, it's not about the money, okay? It's about giving my clients the experience that they will never be able to get anywhere else in this world. And what happens? It goes by word of mouth. Natasha Maine is the attorney that you need to go to for your divorce. I make sure that my advocacy is impeccable. I make sure that I let my clients feel at home, the warmth, everything that they need during the time of having a divorce. The very important thing that everyone should know is the money will come if you just give the people what they need. When you give them trust, when you give them integrity, they will knock your doors down. But some people are going to say, but that sounds like a dream, Natasha. I'm telling you, that is my reality. I grew up, both of my parents came from Jamaica. I was the first kid that they had here in South Florida. They knew no one, but I decided to make my hard work pave the way for myself. So what I'm saying is nobody has any kind of excuses at all to say why they cannot be successful. Because the truth is, if you put it in your head to be successful, you are most definitely going to be successful. Another thing that I talk about all the time is power dressing, having a signature look. I make sure that I am so fabulous that even when I walk into the courtrooms, the judges have to say, Counsel Maine, you're looking wonderful today. They're not wrong for that. They're absolutely not wrong for that. Okay. They're not showing bias. If you stand out and you're fabulous, they have a right to tell you look fabulous. Okay. You have to let your clients know when you power dress, the other side already becomes fearful because they're saying to themselves, if she steps in looking like this, only God knows how she's going to advocate for her client. And that is absolutely true. And when I talk about power dressing, I'm also talking about your office has to look impeccable. Your office needs to be absolutely beautiful. When they step in, they know you're not the average pedestrian client out there just trying to do something. I don't know what the something is, but just trying to do something. Everything has to be impeccable. Have your signature look, your signature scent. Your office must be impeccable. When my clients ask for water, I don't hand them a bottle of Zephyr Hill or whatever it is. I hand them a crystal glass with the finest water you can find. When I have my business meetings, I don't have my business meetings at any and all restaurant. I choose the finest. because it's all about the customer service and the experience that you give. It's so important to make yourself stand out, and you must introduce people to a different experience that they will never get from anyone else. So we got to give up on being good for great. I always say, so why not be the best? Because that is the only market that is not crowded. I want you to hear what I just said. Why not be the best? Because that is the only market that is not crowded, is being the best and being at the top of your game. Success is built over time. Many people think, oh, I'm gonna check out this webinar. I'm gonna go to a 3-day seminar over the weekend, and bam, I've got it. It doesn't work like that. Like I said from the very beginning, it's hard work that will get you there. Many times there's this little voice. It happens to me, especially when I was younger. It happens to me. There was always this little voice of doubt or fear in me where I'm saying to myself, why, say, woo, the parents, them don't know nobody can refer people to me. How am I going to do this? How am I going to accomplish this? And I used to talk therapy myself. I used to self-talk myself and say, listen here, man, you are good enough. You are the best at what you do. You are intelligent. You are phenomenal. And guess what? You are worthy of all of God's greatness in this world. And I decided I was going to market myself different from everybody else. So those of you that know me from online on Instagram, my bossy, I like to dress up, I like to dance. I like to do all these fabulous things. Because at the end of the day, I'm a human being. I just happen to have the title of a lawyer. But a lawyer doesn't make me who I am. But I decided to market myself different from any other lawyer in this world. And I've been doing this for 3 years now. And believe me, I was basically forced to open up a consulting firm, which is now known as Natasha Main Inc. Because I had women from all over the world. I have clientele now through my consulting firm from all over the world. Australia, Switzerland, Iceland. Truly, I didn't even know that I would impact women all across the world like that. I really did not know, but that goes to show you, if you just put that extra foot forward, you will be amazed at how God will work in your favor. No one is going to know me if I sit in my office and just work. I have to be out there so everyone knows, hey, Natasha Main exists. So you have to be proactive and let the whole world see you. And you're going to feel funny when you're doing your first couple of videos. You're going to feel funny when you actually record yourself and put it out there. But I tell everybody, if you have a cell phone, okay, there's no reason why your bank account is empty. If you have a cell phone, I started with my cell phone uploading all my things on Facebook and YouTube. And now it's like I have to hire lawyers to help me with the amount of work that I have. I started my consulting firm last year. I had to hire 2 young ladies to help me, and it all started with the cell phone. So I don't want to hear any excuse about, well, I can't do this and I can't do that because I don't have the production team to market the way that I need to. You have to be creative and you have to be able to work with what you have. Take steps with what you have and watch how the universe just embraces you. The universe loves people that are authentic because it's a rarity in life to find people that are authentic. So when authenticity happens, it's the most magical moment for anybody. Another thing about women, people feel like, oh, this is a man's world. Yes, I'm among some fabulous, intelligent, good-looking men here. Very much so. But I'm going to tell you something. It's a woman's world too. What we have, our competitive edge, in my opinion, which has worked for me, is the fact that we are emotionally intelligent. We are natural born nurturers. So I tell people all the time, it's not about me knowing the law and being able to regurgitate the law or going in front of a judge and being able to advocate. It's all about the psychology of every case. Just like for business, you have to understand there's a psychological aspect of business. So when I go in with my emotional intelligence, right, I understand my client and what they want. I check into opposing counsel to see what their demeanor is. I check into the other side, the other party. It might be the husband, it might be the wife, whatever it is. There's a psychological analysis that you must do for every business in order to make it work. And that in turn leveraged my aptitude to be able to lead my law firm in the direction that I've done. So I had to differentiate myself. I had to create value, and I had to impact the world to make them believe that I have the trust, integrity, the work ethic to accomplish whatever they want to accomplish in their cases. So what I want to basically emphasize to you all is the fact that you've truly got everything that you need in life. You've got it. Don't second guess yourself. I tell everybody, if me, a little inner city girl, can do it, everybody in this world can accomplish what it is they want. But it starts with a belief. And remember, I always say, cream will always rise to the top. So you gotta believe in yourself, you gotta move forward, and you gotta kill that little voice inside you that doesn't want you to believe that you are phenomenal and worthy of all of God's abundance. But I want to thank you all, and I'm here for another 2 hours, but I'm so happy you all made the ladies go first, because that's what we're supposed to do here. But I'm here for it all, and believe in yourself, and any questions that you all have towards the end, I'm ready for you. All right?
Thank you very much. Of course, the gentleman insisted that you go first, Natasha.
Yes.
We move from Natasha to Ian Levy, who will speak to integrity in business. Now, a little bit about Ian. Ian K. Levy is a founding member of Supreme Ventures Limited and chairman of Ian K. Agencies Limited and LHCC Perfect Homes Limited. Supreme Ventures Limited is currently Jamaica's largest gaming company, while Ian K. Agencies represents the interests of French companies in Jamaica. Welcome, Ian. Thank you very much for joining us. Over to you.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Novio. Thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar. It's really a pleasure to be here with some amazing people, particularly here in Natasha for the first time. She seems to be an incredible individual, although she stole a little bit of my thunder because as you heard her speak about, integrity is very important. So in every business, and I'm sure everybody would agree, so Natasha opened the door for me on this particular subject. Now, when I look in the Oxford Dictionary, it says integrity is moral excellence, honesty, wholeness, and soundness. So integrity is attributed that needs to be cultivated in every family and in every business from a young age to the very beginning of the company. It is the foundation on which truthfulness, accuracy, and one's actions are judged. Your word should be your bond. Integrity is vital in business relationships. It is the tree from which stems the branches of honesty, respect, trustworthiness, pride, responsibility, promise keeping, and helping others. There was a time when business deals were consummated with a handshake, based completely on the integrity of the persons involved in those negotiations. Today, complicated legal documents are the order of the day, geared to the protection of partners from any unethical action against each other, which is unfortunate. Lack of integrity in this place costs a country dearly in terms of how they're viewed on the global scene. I'm sure you can recall having seen reports that literally expose countries for their lack of integrity, whether as a result of their attempts to export counterfeit, substandard goods, or their governments by saying certain things and doing other things. We have experiences in Jamaica on a constant basis of our Auditor General bringing out cases of over expenditure, unauthorized expenditure, and what that has resulted to the country. It has accounted for billions of dollars of lost earnings and billions of dollars of lost money. Your word should be trusted, and with your word being trusted, you can build up a legend of good relationships with your business partners. It is imperative to take promises as a businessman. Never promise something and say you're going to do it and do not deliver. That is the essence of being a good businessman. To be able to keep your word, to be able to keep your promises. And, you know, I will show you from example in my life what has happened and how integrity played a part if one is to accept that I'm a certain success in business. Novia mentioned that ENK Agencies does a lot of business with French companies, and that's what we do. We started from 1978, and we started by having no relationship with France and just building up a relationship with one bank developed into a multitude of contracts between Jamaica and the government of France and the government of Jamaica and French companies. And between 1978 and up to today, we have done hundreds of millions of dollars based basically on integrity, on the fact that what we say we can do, we actually do, and they trust our word. In the case of Supreme Ventures, we got that license because in our negotiation, we told the government what we could do, what to expect, and the fact is that we delivered on our word. And the government in turn delivered our request by giving us a license. It was all based on honesty, trustworthiness, and the respect for our word and our integrity. Integrity builds pride in your business. A pride that says your accomplishments are built on solid ethical grounds. It motivates one to encourage others to do the right thing, regardless of the consequences. It is important that we set the stage for our future generations. If the future generations do not believe that our word is our bond, that we can be trusted and there's trustworthiness, then it sets a bad stage for the generation to follow. If there's no honesty in business and there's no integrity in business, we're going to be lost. We will not be successful. So it is imperative that in business, we follow what the dictionary says. Moral excellence, honesty, wholeness, and soundness. If we follow those principles, you will be successful in business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. You're getting a round of applause there, Ian. Michael Lee Chin is the chairman of Portland Holdings. He will present on From Every Crisis Comes Opportunity. Michael Lee Chin is the founder and chairman of Portland Holdings, Inc., which has controlling interest in the NCB Financial Group, Mavis Bank Coffee Factory, CVM Television, Trident Castle, and Hotel in Portland, plus the Model Agricultural Production Limited. NCBFG owns the local National Commercial Bank, Guardian Holdings, and Clarion Bank, which are based throughout the Caribbean. Welcome, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning, all. I think I'm
Yes.
unmuted, right?
Yeah.
So thank you very much for having me. When I first went into high school, the first day of high school, 1962, the custom of the parish, Mr. Grosset, was announcing, speaking to all of us. And I'm getting an echo. Novia, I'm getting an echo.
Okay, but go ahead. We'll work on it. We're still here. We're
So the
hearing you.
custom of the parish was addressing the first year.
Natasha should mute her microphone. Natasha, yeah, perfect.
Right.
And Mr. Gross,
Thank you,
Mr.
Wes.
Grosset said, boys and girls, opportunity knocks but once. So when he said that, I shuddered because I thought to myself, one moment, suppose when my one opportunity comes knocking, I'm gazing out the window, which I always do. I always daydream. Or I'm sleeping, or I'm playing marbles. Then my life is over. So for the next 10 years, I didn't gaze, I didn't sleep, I didn't play marbles. I'm looking out for the one opportunity. Then this friend of mine said, Mike, why you look so sleep deprived? I said, well, I'm looking out for Mr. Gross. I told him Mr. Gross's story. And I said, I'm looking out for my one opportunity. He said, Mr. Gross, it is wrong, Mike. Look, every day there are opportunities. But unfortunately, opportunities are usually clad in a crisis. And when there's a crisis, how do you feel? You feel bad. You get paralyzed. You look pallid. But don't forget one thing, Mike. The Chinese definition of the word crisis, which is like an equation. Crisis equals danger. That's why you feel bad. That's why you look pallid. Plus opportunity. In other words, you cannot get an opportunity unless there's a crisis. And the bigger the crisis, the bigger the opportunity. So today we're going through one in 100-year crisis, a pandemic. So can you imagine the opportunities that are lurking right now in front of us? It's just for us to ask ourselves a question. Where are the opportunities? I feel bad. I feel upset. But settle yourself down and ask the question, where are the opportunities? So a year ago, I said to myself, I was working out in the gym and I thought, Mike, how did you get here? You're from Port Antonio. The mom is an orphan. When she had you, she for the first 6 months of her life, she didn't have a job. She was taken in by the helpers of the local supermarket in Port Antonio. How did you get here? The following answer came to mind. I got here because, number one, I'm purpose driven. I'll do nothing unless I'm stirred by a strong purpose. I'm not interested in doing any and everything. Secondly, because I'm purpose driven, it's a fuel for creativity. And thirdly, because I'm purpose driven, I will persevere. I'm not going to let up until the job is done. So I came to university in Canada, 1970. 1976, I was looking for a job. I did engineering, civil engineering. And I couldn't get a job. I sent out 100 resumes. I got 100 rejections. I had 3 non-engineering job opportunities. The first being to be a long-haul truck driver. The second being to be a soap salesman. And the third being to sell mutual funds. I didn't even know what a mutual fund was. I said, I'll take the third. So being an immigrant, no one with money. And I'm selling securities. So I had to knock on doors. And Canada at the time was not as multicultural as it is today. So when someone said, okay, Mike, come and see me, I'd go to their home, sit by their kitchen table, and I'd ask myself the question, what is the highest value I can give to this family here today? What is that one thing, the highest value that I can give to this family here tonight? And the answer kept coming back to me, Mike, make them wealthy. Make them wealthy. That's the highest value any advisor can give to the family that he or she is advising. Make them wealthy. Oh, is there a formula? I'm a scientist. That if you practice consistently, the only outcome is wealth. I wanted to know that formula, if there's such a formula. And if there was such a formula, I was going to dedicate my life to it. So today, then, 1977, we didn't have Google. But today, if you Google it, nothing comes up but a bunch of books. People trying to get wealthy off of you. So I figured it out a year later. And here's what I figured out. Everybody in the world who created wealth did 5 things. Oh, before I get there, I'll go there. I'll fast forward to a month ago at 3:30 a.m. I'm lying in my bed sleeping, and boom, a lightning bolt of a thought hit me. I jumped up, and here's what hit me at 3:30 a.m. a month ago, Sunday morning. Does anyone know what a unicorn is? A unicorn is a rare mythological animal. So rare that most of us haven't seen one ever. In business, a unicorn is also rare. In business, a unicorn is defined as a private business that has just crossed this threshold of being worth $1 billion US. A private business that's worth over $1 billion US. To be associated with one is a rarity that very few businesses or institutions would be associated with. How about 2? Even rarer, but not twice as rare. Geometrically as rare. How about 3? How about 4? Very, very few institutions in the world or individuals in the world would be associated with 4. I thought, Mike, but you are associated with 4 unicorns and $2 billion businesses. That's six basically. But the other 2 are public. They don't count. So how did that happen? There must be something in the water at Portland Holdings that you guys are drinking. What is your formula? Yes, there's a formula. And it's how wealth is created. So I'll just quickly go through it, because I think the highest value I could give this audience today is just to chart, to say, yes, there is a formula. And anybody who practices it, the outcome will be the same. But you just have to stick with it and persevere. So here's what I discovered. In terms of investor behavior, in the investors who become wealthy do 5 things. Number 1, they own a few high quality businesses. Number 1. Number 2, they really understand those few businesses. Number 3, those businesses are usually domiciled in strong long-term growth industries. Number 4, they use other people's money. Number 5, they simply hold those businesses for the long run. So that's what every single wealthy person did to become wealthy. Now let us look at the characteristics of the business that person would own. There are some definitive characteristics of the business that person would own. Firstly, invariably, that business is run by an owner-operator. Right? The business is run by an owner-operator. Secondly, that business invariably, there's heavy concentration of ownership of the business by a few people. Thirdly, third characteristics of wealth-creating businesses would be that there's personal identification between the business and the owner and the owner and the business. Think Apple. What's the first person that comes to mind? Steve Jobs. Think Steve Jobs. What's the business that comes to mind? Apple. Personal identification. Thirdly, wealth creating businesses are not run like a democracy. They're usually run in an autocratic manner and possibly a dictatorship manner, invariably. Fifthly, wealth creating businesses are entrepreneurial. Sixthly, wealth creating businesses have low turnover of management. Seventhly, when wealth creating businesses make a capital allocation decision, if it's a good one, the net worth of the owners increases. If it's a bad one, the net worth decreases. So the risk reward is perfectly symmetrical. Wealth creating businesses think long term, think and act long term. Wealth creating every day, the business, the owner's own operator thinks, how do I grow this baby or these babies? And lastly, the 10th characteristic of wealth creating businesses are validation of success will be customer satisfaction, sales growth, margins, market share, etc. So those are the two things that I observed and codified and have hardwired. And I've lived those principles for the last 40 years. That's today why I can say we have been associated with $6 billion companies in sectors ranging from asset management, banking, telecom, targeted radionuclide therapy, and energy. In geographical regions, which would include Canada, Jamaica, Caribbean and Central America, Germany, and Australia. So the principles do work. And I'm just an engineer, a little Jamaican immigrant. And if I can, as Natasha said, if I can do it, and if there is a framework, a methodology that is transparent, anybody can. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's what you call a masterclass. Now, we move to Wayne Purbu, closing the deal. Wayne Purbu is a serial entrepreneur. Did you know that, Wayne? Serial entrepreneur, whose 25-year career has spanned the worlds of media and telecommunications across the length and breadth of North America. His most recent exit was from QuickPlay Media, which was acquired by telecoms giant AT&T in 2016. He's currently a co-founder of the Onyx Initiative and is based in Oakville, Canada. Welcome, Wayne. We're dying to hear a little bit of your background and how to close the deal. You see, Wes is smiling.
Yeah, I've spent too much time with Wes. It's really wonderful to hear Michael and Natasha and Ian speak about their experiences. My experience is a little bit different in that I am in the technology industry. And I'm going to really quickly just go over my wake-up call. My first opportunity, my first job out of school, I was very green. Did not understand much of the world. We talk a lot about the lack of sort of social capital that as an immigrant in Canada, we have. I was a child of that circumstance. But I was fortunate and I started work for a technology company in Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley meant nothing to me at the time, other than it was a good job and they paid really well. So I started in Palo Alto and working for a company, and because I was unmarried and 22 years old, I worked like a demon. I always had a natural curiosity, and I learned a lot. And because it was a startup, they let me have access to all pieces of the business. One day, I got a call from Charles Schwab, and they said, "We have an account here for you, but it only has one stock in it." And I said to them, "You've made a mistake. I don't have an account at Charles Schwab." And they said to me, well, you've been paying into this employee stock purchase plan for the last couple of years, and the company's now gone public. I had no idea what going public meant. I had no idea what an employee stock purchase plan. I did review my pay stub later on and did notice that there was this thing called ESPP. But for those of you who've ever worked for an American company, there's lots and lots of deductions on your pay stub. And at that time, I paid little attention to them all. I was more just looking right to the final number. It turns out that this company that I'd been working hard had gone public, and I had made money. It was at that point that I started to do the forensics to start to understand, okay, how did this happen? How did I get here? And I learned more about the startup game. And I was, as they say, I was bitten. I started to think about, okay, through technology, I can build startups and have material exits that can create wealth. I have never been one that is really focused on exiting the business. I've never felt that that's a good way to go. And the transaction wasn't as important to me as the journey. And like Michael said, I have two fundamental philosophies now when I look at startups. One is, what is the mission? What is the purpose that they're driving towards? And two, who are the people? And what I found is that if you have a strong mission and you have a strong leadership team, that you have wonderful people, empathetic people, you're going to be successful. None of the startups I've been involved in have been a straight line up and to the right. They've all materially had substantial challenges. The pandemic is one example, but when I think about Quick Play and survival of the 2008-2009 economic crisis, when I went to a board meeting and the only slide I had for the board was survive. I had no other slide to discuss the business. What gets you through is the people. I work in knowledge industries. There are no other assets. There is nothing else for you to invest in. It is only the people. And so what I've found is surrounding myself with great people that know what good looks like, meaning they're not learning on the job. They know exactly what to do. They know more than I know what to do, have been a very, very successful formula for me. I'm going to talk very quickly about mission, and Michael did a great job of describing purpose. I've always referred to it as, what is the mission? And, one of the questions I get, and I work very closely with my alma mater and mentoring college students, is how do I decide on my mission, or how do I understand the mission of a startup? And one of the things that I've learned over time is that we all have talents, and we all have activities that we do that drive us, that make us want to get up every morning and work hard. And there's activities we don't want to do. Those are the activities that drain us. And being able to choose a mission or a purpose that drives you and doesn't drain you is really, really key. And understanding yourself and being able to do that self-introspection of what is it that drives you, what is it that drains you, is very, very important. I'm going to use that as a segue to talk a little bit about an initiative that my wife and I have started. We're using a software company out of Waterloo called Plum to understand students and what drives them and what drains them in order to find them placements in corporate Canada. The fundamental thing that we have found, as we've witnessed a lot of social injustice that have happened to people of color in all over the world, is that it is not a lack of skill or competency that is holding us back. We just do not have the social capital. We don't participate in some of the norms that would give us the opportunities that would allow us to get our fair share, our equal share. This idea of not getting of this gap that exists in the recruiting and the placement of Black college and university students has become a passion project for my wife and I, and we created Onyx. We launched in October 21st of 2020, and we had over 300 applicants. We've since recruited about 170 students, and we have 50 empathetic corporations that have provided us with hundreds of opportunities for our students. When you look at the data of these students and understand these students are coming from all over the diaspora, they remind me so much of myself in that they're thirsty for these opportunities. They're thirsty for the knowledge. They want to know, how do I get there? And we are trying to remove some of the obstacles that I faced. We are trying to put in place a program and build a bridge between these students and corporate Canada. And so far, we're very, very pleased with the results. One of the things we're trying to instill in these students is a mindset. And I think Natasha did a great job of establishing, some of those characteristics of what is the mindset that you have to have. I personally, and I'm just going to give you my sort of top three. You have to be diligent. You have to be very, very diligent. And, this is all about hygiene. Every morning you have to brush your teeth. And I talk to my kids about hygiene extending to the rest of your life, meaning you have to invest. You have to do the little things every day. You have to practice. So be very diligent and have the right hygiene. You have to be curious. One of the things that I suffer from is I am crazy curious about everything. I want to know about everything. I still do the New York Times crossword. I still practice, read as many books as I can. I am incredibly curious. I actually, believe it or not, just went back to school to do my MBA because I don't have my MBA. And I thought during the pandemic, I've got some time. So I'm going to do my MBA just because I was curious about what I didn't know about business. So I'm a 53-year-old getting my MBA again, but I'm really loving it. And then finally, from a mindset standpoint, I want the thing that I have learned, and it's taken me some time, is to be empathetic. And having an empathetic mindset is not just about how we feel about our customers. It's not just how we feel about our families. It's empathy for our community. You'll see that a lot of what's going on, we just came, the US has just come, thankfully, through a presidency where we had a very unempathetic president that, caused some divisive and material separations in the government. That lack of empathy, along with that lack of integrity, is what I feel really plagues the world. One of the big drivers in business today, if you look at some of the biggest companies, the big SaaS companies, companies like Twilio with, just $1 billion in revenue and a $65 billion market cap, their biggest mode of success is this new senior executive role that is emerging called customer success. I don't know if you've noticed it. So many companies now have a customer success role. Gone are the days where company builds products and we tell consumers, this is the product you need. Today, we have to listen to our customers. We have to be empathetic to our customers. We have to be empathetic to our communities. and we have to be empathetic to each other. Empathy is the thing that I see the world is missing. And we have to be more empathetic to others if we are going to survive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Wayne. Well, we spoke earlier about the breaking news from Wes Hall just as he was about to take his seat. But, you know, there's more too. He's named on the Canada's Power List, number 16, business, for attacking racist systems, starting at the top. Listed amongst 50 Canadians who are breaking ground, leading the debate, and showing us how to think. So, Wes Hall will speak on generational wealth and networking. Wes Hall is an expert deal maker who founded Kingsdale Advisors, which has worked with successful giants like Citigroup, Goldcorp, Talisman, and Air Canada. He's also an owner of QM Environmental, Titan Supply, and the Harbour Club Hotel in St. Lucia. He was recently appointed to the Ontario Capital Markets Modernisation Task Force, which was tasked to review and modernise the province's legislation. Thank you very much for joining us, Wes.
Yeah, thank you, Novia. That expression, you're on mute, that is a 2020 expression, but it moves into 2021. So, you know, as I listen to everyone speak here, I am so privileged and honored to be a part of this conversation. I want to tell you that. And both Michael, myself, and Wayne has something in common. We're from the most neglected part of Jamaica. Wayne and I are from St. Thomas, and Michael is from Portland. We're from the eastern part of the country. Whenever I go to Jamaica and I go to my hometown in Golden Grove, I drive through the most treacherous roads that I take my life in my own hands just to visit my own family because those roads are so bad. There's goats and people darting across, and the potholes are as big as a chasm. And hopefully one day, by the way, that part of Jamaica is the most beautiful part of Jamaica. For those who haven't been to Portland and St. Thomas, you need to go there because it's the most beautiful part. But unfortunately, it's the most impoverished part of the island. So it's ironic that someone like myself who's from that part of Jamaica is talking about generational wealth. Somebody who's from the poorest part of the island is here speaking to you about creating wealth. So I'm going to do my best to try to do that. But Michael and Wayne have already talked about what it's like to create wealth. You know, Mike gave you 5 things. And if you follow those 5 things, you're probably going to make a couple of dollars. Remember what he said, 1, own a few high quality business. Now, if you're in St. Thomas, you probably can't own a few high quality business, right? But let's say the business is you have a goat, right? You're going to make sure that that goat can produce for you so that you can actually multiply how many offspring that goat creates, that you can actually create assets. You're not going to get a goat with a limp on it and all this kind of stuff. You're going to get one that's fertile. So I'm going to bring it into that perspective. You talk about understanding the business you're in. So whatever business you choose, really understand that you're going to be really well. And it says to do something that's going to create value by growing, right? Nothing that's stagnant is going to, you're going to create it at a certain level and there's an opportunity to build on it. And then it says to use other people's money to do it, right? So if you have a neighbor that has a little bit more money than you, borrow some money from him, okay? Tell him that you're going to give him a favorable interest rate. And then guess what? You're going to use his money to create wealth for yourself. And it says to own that asset for the long run. As long as you can actually own it, keep it, because it's going to continue to produce for you. You know, Wayne talked about, for example, 3 things that he takes with him. And it talks about diligent. You know, it talks about you must brush your teeth. What does that mean? It means that you must invest in yourself. You must practice. You must do the small things that people take for granted on a daily basis. Talks about curiosity. Just think about what's it like to get to the next level? What's it like to leave my town to go to the next town? What's it like to get out of my comfort zone is important. And also empathy, which is, I think, is really key. Once we get there, once we get to the success that we want and we ultimately achieve it, are we empathetic? Are we giving back to people? Are we going back to those neighborhoods and try to help as many people as we possibly can? See, we have a responsibility when we create wealth for ourselves, especially when we came from poverty. When we create wealth for ourselves when we came from poverty, we become first responders. What do first responders do? They go back into the fire, they go back into the emergency and put as many people out of harm's way as possible. So when we become wealthy or we create wealth for ourselves, we go back into our community and pull as many people out of poverty as we possibly can. So I'm going to talk about, how I became somewhat successful. I still have a long ways to go. I still have a lot of work to do. But I'll tell you how I became somewhat successful. I started my career in Canada. I came here September 27, 1985. Okay, the first time I came on, I'd been on an airplane was that day, September 27, 1985 was a Friday. And my first job was delivering newspapers. So we're Jamaica Observer, for example, I would be one of those guys go around the neighborhood, deliver those newspapers. Of course, I went to school, but I also worked at a chicken farm where I had to catch chickens and put them on the assembly line to get slaughtered. Worst job ever. And by the way, if you want to be successful, get some really, really bad jobs, like really bad jobs, horrible jobs, because it gives you the appreciation to know what you don't want to do in life. If you have a cushy job when you finish school and stuff like that, yeah, it's no big deal. Get a really bad job. But my first job on Bay Street was in the mailroom of a company. And a lot of people, you went to UE and you graduate and you go, somebody said, hey, I want you to work in my mailroom. Let's say Mike call you up. Or you get an opportunity to meet Mike. And he said, come work in my mailroom at NCB. And you go, well, no, I'm not going to work in your mailroom. But could you imagine getting to be at the feet of Michael Lee Chen to learn at one point in your life, but you have to start at the bottom to do that, and you actually turn that opportunity down? And then you look back at that later on and say, how dumb was I? Right? So I had an opportunity to work at a very prestigious law firm. Natasha knows what it's like to be in the law business, and she knows the attitudes and personality that are in that business and the ego that's in that business. But I was in the mailroom at that firm, and I was walking around and looking at all these very successful people. And I figured out a way to get them to get success as a result of watching these people. Natasha talked about the way she dressed. The way you dress is very important. Why? Because I wore a suit and tie when I was in the mailroom. And all my colleagues in the mailroom was laughing at me. They're like, this guy think he's a lawyer, he's wearing a suit and tie, right? But when I would go by the lawyers in the hallway, they too would think I was a lawyer, and they would start having conversations with me. Now, if I was wearing jeans and t-shirt, do you think they would stop to spend the time to have a conversation with me? Not a chance, right? Because I'm not on their level, but my dress showed them that I was on their level, just the way I dressed. And I was able to use those connections and relationships to be able to move up the corporate ladder. Networking is very difficult for Black people. It's not easy. It comes natural for white folks, but for Black people, it's very difficult because we have this view that we're not capable enough. We don't know enough to be able to carry a conversation. But again, what did Wayne said? He was curious. He reads a lot. That's how you're able to carry a conversation. When you're able to sit with somebody at different levels and have those kind of conversations with them, all of a sudden they go, wait a minute here, I like this kid. That's what these people are saying in the mailroom. I like that kid. And they went on their way to help me. Until this day today, the reason why Novia talk about the Communication of the Year Award and different accolades that I've received is because of the network that I was able to build. And when I call on those people for help, they said, yes, I'm going to help you. And they put their hand up. And so if we want to be able to get out of that comfort zone of just pushing ourselves to that next level, we have to take that first step. All of us on the line, for the most part, are entrepreneurs. We started our own business from the ground up. And in a lot of cases, we didn't have the bank of mom and dad. We weren't able to go to mom and dad and say, hey, give me $100,000 to start my business. We were able to bust our own tails and get it done. And here we are today to make it happen. So when Natasha said, for example, if I can do it, anyone can do it, it's a simple statement. And she's right to a certain extent, but she's not telling you that it's hard work. It's not easy. It's hard work. And by the way, getting there is hard work. Staying there is even harder, right? Because all of a sudden, everybody's after you now when you're up on the top, okay? So we're going to have a nice conversation. I'm not going to go on and on with this stuff here, but, I'm pleased to be here. Pleased to be here with these guys. I hope that you really pay attention to the nuggets of information that the group here is providing, because at the end of the day, it is possible. It is possible to come from a place like St. Thomas in the barracks. I have 14 brothers and sisters. My grandmother raised me to become whatever you want to be, whether it be in Canada, in Jamaica, in the UK, in the US, wherever you are, it is possible. Not easy, but it's possible.
Thank you very much. Let's go to some questions that have been coming in. Mr. Lee Chin, this one is for you from Gabriel Higgins. Can you, Mr. Lee Chin, go over the list of the formula and the characteristics, please? A big smile on your face. Okay, turn your mic on, Mike.
Okay, good.
Right.
So certainly, Warren Buffett once said, when he was asked, how come you're so wealthy? How did you do it? How did you grow your wealth from $0 to $80 billion US? He said, well, to be successful over the long run doesn't require stratospheric IQ, unusual business insight, or any particular inside information. What's needed is a sound intellectual framework for making decisions, and secondly, the ability to keep your emotions from corroding your framework. So we need two things. When we make decisions, we need to make decisions based on a framework. And secondly, we need to make sure we have some mechanism to keep our emotions in check. So that's what I've believed in. So I wanted to protect myself from myself. So what I did is, as I said earlier, I codified some principles, framework. And the first is the principles pertaining to successful investor behavior. And as I said, that the 5 laws of wealth creation. I call them the 5 laws of wealth creation. And that is, again, the principles behind investor behavior. Firstly, own a few. Your wealth is created by only owning a few, not too many, high-quality businesses. Secondly, make sure you understand them. Thirdly, make sure they're in strong long-term growth industries. Fourthly, use other people's money prudently. And lastly, you simply hold the businesses for as long as they remain great businesses. Now let's talk about wealth, the characteristics of wealth-creating businesses now. Firstly, wealth-creating businesses invariably are run by owner-operators. The owner and the operator is usually one and the same. Wealth-creating businesses there's usually a heavy concentration of ownership in the business. Only a few people own the business. So there's heavy skin in the game. Wealth-creating businesses, there's personal identification between the owner and the business and the owner. I used Steve Jobs as the example. Wealth-creating businesses are usually run not by a democracy, but by an autocracy. The owner operator is usually an autocrat. Yes, he or she may go around and ask opinions, but at the end of the day, the decision is centralized. Wealth creating businesses are entrepreneurial. Wealth creating businesses, every day the owner operator wakes up and think one thought: how do I grow this baby? Growth, growth, growth. Wealth creating business, when they make a capital allocation decision, if it's a good decision, their net worth increases. The net worth of the business increases. If it's a bad decision, the net worth decreases. Business could even go bankrupt. Therefore, the owner operators are very, very thoughtful when they make capital allocation decisions. In other words, the risk reward is symmetrical. Wealth creating businesses, validation of success would be a function of revenue growth, margins, customer satisfaction, etc. So those are the qualities pertaining to wealth creating businesses. So when someone comes to you and says, look, I have a great idea I have a great investment for you, all you have to do is take out your list first of 5 to see if it meets those 5 criteria, high quality, etc., etc. And then secondly, your list of 10 qualities pertaining to wealth creating business. And if you have 15 tick marks, it's a go. If you don't have 15 tick marks, you have to scratch your head and say, why am I doing this? Success is all about having a framework which will which will help you to make consistent decisions and keep your emotions in check.
There's another question for you, Mike, so don't get too comfortable. As a unicorn, this is from Cordell Williams. As a unicorn, Michael Lee-Chin, you have achieved a lot, which has guided the establishment of your proven formula for success. What would you say is the formula for recovering from mistakes and failures?
I beat up on myself and I said, Mike, why did you deviate from your principles? Simple. Every time I make a mistake, I deviated from my framework. What I do is simple. The principles are simple to understand, not easy to execute over the long run. So although I may be an avid advocate and these principles are codified and hardwired into me, I too can deviate. And every time I deviate, I get whacked.
This is a question for Natasha from Cordell Williams. Women in business, Natasha, and in the corporate world face a lot of discrimination and are often overlooked. Progress is being made, yes. However, what has been your experience with discrimination and what are your recommendations to young women to overcome discrimination?
Okay. When I graduated from law school, I started working at a very large firm. And I felt like I was so impressed with myself. And I felt like, wow, this is amazing. This is just where I wanted to be. Well, so I thought. And I'm a very eccentric and different person. I've always been all of my life. And I thought that that's what I wanted when I graduated from school. I graduated from law school in 2001. And my first job offer was $140,000. And I thought I was so successful. That's more than mommy ever made. That's more than daddy ever made. I was the boss. And I felt like this is where I wanted to go. This is what I wanted to be. And I went to work so excited, dressed like Puss Backfoot, ready to accomplish the world. And from day one, I walked into that law firm. I knew it wasn't for me. You could feel the tension. They're not used to being around Black people. But I must tell you, it never fazed me. It didn't bother me. I don't have problems like that, you know? I don't let those things impact me negatively. If you have an issue with me being who I am, that is your problem. That is not mine. So I jumped around from law firm to law firm, trying to find a place. And I realized that there's always going to be classism, sexism, racism. There's going to be all these isms. But do these isms bother me? No. So what I decided to do was I needed to create my own course. And I decided that I was going to start my own law firm. Does it exist? Absolutely. Do I let that guide me and control me as to what decisions I make and what risk I take? Absolutely not. Do I understand that it's saturated out there? Absolutely. Do I take that into consideration when I'm moving and grinding out there? Absolutely not. Because I am so focused, and as I think Mike said, purpose driven, that I'm not going to let these constructs impact me and my movement. So when I started my law firm, I realized this is the place I need to be. Do I face sexism still? Absolutely. I've had many opposing counselors call me, hey, Natasha, you're a young girl, and I've been doing this for 40 years, as old as you are, and this, that, the other, blah. I face these things all the time. But again, you got to talk about emotional intelligence, as I mentioned before, and someone else mentioned. I don't let those things impact me, how I speak, how I act, or whatever it is. Because I'm so focused on being the best that I can be, I'm going to move forward. So the isms that are out there, discrimination, racism, all that kind of stuff out there, I don't even take that into consideration. When I applied for my jobs and I was coming out of law school, I didn't even take those things into consideration. I've started my law firm. I must say that I hire people that look like me first. My father's a very black and white person. My father is so straightforward. Sometimes it hurts me. My dad would say something to me like this. You have a problem with the people that have a law firm? That's their law firm. You have no right to tell those people how to behave at their law firm. You need to go open up your own law firm. That is how my father behaved. And it gave me a mindset to say, don't complain. I understand that there's these things out there. I acknowledge it. But we have to get out there in our community and build our companies so that the younger generation doesn't have to experience this as intensely as we have. So I got to tell you, to answer your question thoroughly, because lawyers can talk and talk and talk and talk, and we don't know when to stop. Has that impacted me? Yes, I've seen it. I've felt it. Has it changed the trajectory of my life? Absolutely not, because I am so focused on winning and making an indelible mark in this world that I'm going to move forward regardless of what is out there in this world.
And there's another question for you about your decision to go into, this is a question, if you can just come down a little bit for me, it's from Kay Bogle. Natasha, I would like to ask Ms. Main how she decided what area of law to specialize in, and if she always knew she wanted to do that specialty. How many years should one wait to begin their own practice?
One of the things that I always emphasize is the fact that we have to trust the process. And that's one thing that I lived by all of my life. I went to law school. You know why I became a lawyer? I became a lawyer because my third grade teacher told me she thought I'd be a phenomenal lawyer. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer. So I went to law school not even knowing exactly what it is that I want to do. The only lawyer that I saw was Matlock on TV, and that's what I knew what a lawyer was. But I knew I had the ability to speak, and I knew I was a great arguer. I knew I could argue. Why not get paid to argue? So I knew I could do those things beautifully. And I went to law school not knowing exactly what I wanted to do. You're never going to know exactly what it is you want to do. You're absolutely never going to know. And we need to start stressing ourselves out and just enjoy the process and move forward with the process. I went to law school. I joined trial team. I learned that I was great at advocating and litigating. I took different classes. And actually, when I was hired straight out of law school, I started doing commercial lending, actually, and commercial litigation. Nothing that I even had an interest in. And I did that for a few years. And then one day, one of my commercial litigation clients said to me, Natasha, I want you to do my divorce. And I said to him, I said, I do not do family law. I do not do family law at all. I have no idea how to do divorces. I don't know. And this man said to me, Natasha, I'm going to pay you to figure it out. I trust that you would do a great job on my case. And he trusted me. I did a great job on his case. And ever since then, that happened around 2011, I've been doing 90% of my work today is commercial. 90% of my work today is matrimonial law. So that's how I started doing it.
Thank you. Question for you, Wes Hall, from Mark Chin. If you could make any one financial decision differently or better in your earlier years, what would it have been?
Actually, that's a really a great question. When I started my business, Kingsdale Advisors, so just a little bit about Kingsdale. I started the business about 20 years ago, and I decided I had this ambition that I'm going to set up a company on Bay Street. Bay Street is Wall Street, the Wall Street version of in Canada here. And I said, I'm going to set up this business, and I'm going to go to these high-profile companies and provide them with advice on how to deal with shareholders who are upset with how they're managing their business. And if they're involved in hostile takeover bid, I'm going to actually provide that services to them. And typically the banks and investment banks and others provide the service, but I have the ambition that I can do it differently. And I started, so I quit my job, and I thought that I was going to get all kinds of money from banks and so on to finance my ambition. And I never really thought about this thing called systemic racism, that people are going to look at this young black guy and say, you're going to go into a corporate boardroom with all old white men, and they're going to hire you to help them to deal with these issues. I never really thought about biases like those that people have. I was naively thinking that I'm going to show my business I spend a lot of time on, and they're going to give me the money. And every single bank turned me down. And I thought some of my colleagues were going to come with me because I thought I was just a smart guy at the company I was at, and not a single person came. So I was in a team of one, but I was able to get a man at the bank who happened to be a black man that I saw, the only black man I saw in the bank after his bank turned me down. And I went to him, and when a black person wants something from another black person, the first thing they start calling him is brother. Hey, brother, what's going on, man? Like if you get stopped by a black police officer, all of a sudden he's your brother. And so I started to use the brother language on him. And he said, you own your own home? I said, yes. And he said, okay, come back in a week. And he loaned me $100,000 against my house to start my business. And that's really how I built the business. Kingsdale today, we have 5 firms in the market doing what we do. And we have 80% of the market share in Canada, and we've had it for the last 15 years. And any hostile merger in Canada, any proxified situation, one was announced today in the energy sector, a very large US company involved in a proxified today, and our firm was the first firm they decided to hire to help them with it. And so the financial decision that I made was I risked my family's livelihood to start a business, and I didn't really know what the outcome would have been. And I potentially could have lost my home and my family's nest egg as a result of going after my ambition. So would I have regretted it? I didn't regret it. What I wanted to do was what Michael mentioned as his number 4 generation of wealth, is like using other people's money. I went to the bank to try to use their money, and they go, no, we're not going to give you our money. So you have to now go to plan B, which is use your own money. The issue is, and you guys heard it from others here, once you use your own money, the discipline is different. Like the difference is different. It's like very different. Like every single thing you do, you think twice about it because you can't fail. Because if you fail, you're thinking about your family being out on the street. You're thinking about your family not having, food to eat. And when I started the business, we had 3 kids and they're all on the tree. And when you have 3 kids on the tree, that's a lot of diapers that you got to buy every single day, every single week. So you have that added pressure. You're on it. But one of the best advice that somebody gave me, it's not a financial advice. When I started, he said to me, you need to manage the expectation at home. When you start your business, manage the expectation at home. And what he meant by that was make sure that you have the support that you need at home, because if you don't have that support, you can't succeed in business. And if the expectation at home is that you're going to go out there, you're going to make a lot of money and we're going to be rich, you're probably not going to be successful because that's too much burden put on you. So I would say, I haven't really made dumb financial decisions. I'm very careful in terms of decisions I've made. I've taken risk, but they're calculated risk. And just make sure that if you're going to go to use other people's money, pay them back first. If you have the confidence, if people have the confidence in you to loan you money to start a business, make sure that they're paid back first. And because guess what? When you need more money, they're going to be a lot happier to give you more money and even bigger checks as a result of you creating value for them by giving their money first and a little something extra.
Stay right there, Wes. We're going to ask everybody the same question. This is a question from Gracia White. Question for each panelist. What are the 2 or 3 key books that you recommend and why?
I'm reading right now Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. And if you should read that book, I would highly recommend it. Outliers is my favorite by Malcolm Gladwell, because it really tells a story about working hard and being different and being an outsider and being successful as an outsider. So I would recommend those 2 books. Caste is really about just how people are treated differently in the system, how to navigate the system that we're in spite of, racism and things that are held against us. So that will give you a sense as to what the struggle looks like. And if you're going to start out and if you want to be a part of it, then outsiders will really tell you exactly, hey, you're never going to be treated the same as everybody else. And in spite of that, put the hours in, that 10,000 hours in, and work hard because you'll get there on your own steam.
Thank you. Natasha, your books?
The 2 books that I love, and one that I just bought last week, it's called The Exceptional Leader. I love books. I read books all the time. And the thing that I love about The Exceptional Leader by Stan Tollerts, because it's such a realistic book. It doesn't sugarcoat the fact that there's how you should lead, and the fact that leaders experience pain too, and leaders know how to overcome. I just really love the book. It's written in such a manner. It's an easy read. And I think everyone should get that, The Exceptional Leader. I think it's a phenomenal book. The other book that I really love and I go to every now and then is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I love that book. The first quote is, you never outshine your leader. Those type of things that you always need to remember, talking about humility and things of that sort. Just anything that makes me and develops me into a better person, I'm down for it. I recommend those 2 books to everyone.
Thank you. Wayne.
You're on mute, buddy.
Thanks, Wes. Sorry. There's so many books that I've taken bits and pieces of, and I'm trying to think of the 2 that probably are the most impactful. Non-business. I'm reading, I'm constantly reading different business books, and I'm in the startup world, so books like The Lean Startup and things like that are important to me. But I think that from a mindset standpoint, there's a book called Thinking Fast and Slow which is when you start to do some introspection, reading that book is very, very impactful. And then a book that gave me a much more conscious view of the human condition is a book called *Sapiens*. It's a thick read. I'll call it a thick read. It's not an easy read, but it's a worthwhile book to get through. Because I think if we have a better understanding of the human condition, we can do better in all aspects of our life.
Thank you. Michael Lee Chin.
Mike, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Yes, sometimes when you're wrestling with a problem, it may be easier, or a question, it may be easier to ask the opposite question and the answer will become clearer. So I read this book, The 10 Commandments for Business Failure by Donald Q. Keough, Donald Q. And basically said, if you want to blow your business up really well, these are the 10 things you should do. which was an obtuse way of looking at it, but it was very compelling. The second book that I would, for people, and I'm going to focus specifically here on wealth creation, because we have other panelists who are doing an excellent job in the soft skill, the other soft skills needed to be successful. Second book is The Founder's Mentality by two Bain consultants, Zook and Allen. The Founder's Mentality. And the third book is a very famous book by Benjamin Graham, the father of securities analysis. The book is called The Intelligent Investor. Those are the three books that come to mind that would be under the genre wealth creation.
Thank you. Ian? You're on mute, Ian. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Well, we're hearing you now.
Good, thank you. Well, I as usual, I think out of the box. I do everything different than most people. The book that I read most of all, obviously, is the Bible, because that guides me in my life. And the next thing I do is that the countries that I do business with, I try to read their constitutions to see what rules they have, the main rules that govern the way they operate. And that's what I concentrate on, those two areas. The Bible and the constitution of the countries that I deal with, to know their laws and how you do business in that country and what guides them. That's what I do.
Thank you. And here's a question for you, Ian, from Cedric MacDonald. Hi, Ian. Congrats on your integrity and value-driven principle. How difficult is it at times to preserve these extraordinary principles in a very competitive and sometimes unethical business world?
That's an excellent question, but it's very difficult because many times you might find that you come in a head-on position with, let's say, the government that you live in, where you would like to do business, but the government of the day has gone in the direction that you might think is not right. And you have to fight the government. But at the same time, to do business in a particular country, in most countries, you need government favors and everything else. So you have to, it's very difficult to hold your integrity and to hold what is right as against what is wrong and voice that opinion and make your life be guided by your principles. It's very difficult. And sometimes you have to lose to hold on to those principles.
Thank you. Mr. Purbu, to avoid complacency, what are some pitfalls to avoid within ourselves and for the business? This is from Twiner Savage.
I think we have to get very, very comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think complacency is a result of, seeking out comfort. Wes talked about risk. I think you got to get really, really comfortable with some risk in your life. You have to be able to sleep at night, knowing that there is some amount of risk in your life, because that comfort is what leads to complacency in a lot of ways. I'm dealing with a lot of complacent companies. And if you really want to learn about complacency, there's a great book called Escape Velocity, which talks about the inability of successful companies to innovate. And it is because they just become so comfortable with where they are that they become complacent, and they become susceptible to attack. You think about big companies like GM, that and all of the American car companies became arrogant and complacent, and you have an individual like Elon Musk that said, "Okay, if you're going to be complacent, I'm going to disrupt you." And today, Tesla can buy all of the manufacturers of cars, and they just got too comfortable selling 8 million cars a year. They just ticked the box and said, "Okay, that's all we have to do." And I think that this idea of never being 100% comfortable is one I take very, very much in mind. I'm the classic paranoid startup guy. There's always somebody coming to get me, and I'm always a little bit worried about who's going to come and eat one of the companies that I'm involved with.
Okay, please direct this question to Wes Hall from Nevada Green. Based on your experience, Mr. Hall, do you think it's best to move overseas to get exposure in order to come back here to Jamaica and apply the knowledge gained to be more successful?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think that I know a lot of very talented people in Jamaica. The only reason why I'm overseas is because I got an opportunity of a lifetime from my dad, who came here when he was 25 years old in 1970, and made a name for himself, a life for himself, really working in a factory. And he sent for me to come here to live with him. And because of the age I was at, I pretty much became the person that I became. And I became a Jamaican Canadian, and certainly, don't really know the ins and outs of Jamaica. I think if I was probably a 20-something-year-old person who left Jamaica to go to university, and I would probably have I would want to go back to Jamaica to give back and to work in Jamaica. But I was a teenager. I came here in high school, and so everything I learned and know how to navigate life in the system were really learned here in Canada. But I would say that if I had I don't really think I would be able to navigate the system in Jamaica. Michael did that. He kind of came here. I think, Michael, you were in your 20s, right? Early 20s when you came? Yeah. Yeah. And, so he took that approach whereby he's straddling between Canada and Jamaica, and became successful in both places because he was able to understand how to navigate things here in Canada. He's also able to navigate things well in Jamaica as well. I unfortunately don't have the same ability to do that. But I would say that if I had the chance to do what Mike has done, I would have done it exactly that, whereby because I can give back. Now I'm doing business in St. Lucia, for example, and the reason why I'm doing business there is because of the fact that I built a vacation home there a number of years ago. And because I've been going back and forth on the island, I get to understand how business is done on the island. And as a result of that, I was able to invest in the island because I met people. I have partners down there that are able to look after things for me as well. But I would say if you have the ability to go back, please do that. Get yourself educated, go back. But even if you decide to stay, always think about how you can help people at home and help the economy back home as well.
Thank you very much. A question, Sudan Wall, question for Michael Lee Chin. How did you develop the courage and the confidence in the formula you have for wealth creation in the initial state?
Well, again, it comes back to confidence, because remember I said I would have to cold call to get clients, and I was so I felt such a bit of gratitude when someone would really say, "Come and see me." I would ask myself, what's the highest value I can give this family? Make them wealthy. Oh, is there a formula that if you practice consistently, the only outcome is no different from mixing 2 atoms of hydrogen with 1 atom of oxygen? You get water every time. So that was my code to break. And today, even if you Google it, nothing comes up. But what I have, I guess it's the engineering in me. I have a protocol that I go through when I have a problem. And it goes like this. I observe, number 1. From my observations, I create a hypothesis. Number 2. Number 3, I stress test the hypothesis. And if it holds true, I codify results. And then last, I hardwire the codification into who I am. So armed with that, I thought, if is your formula to create wealth? Well, let me see if there are some common threads between the wealthy people in the world, whether they are from Australia, Jamaica, Trinidad, Timbuktu. Let's see if there are some common threads. So I read, I observed, I studied. Number 1, I observed. I created a hypothesis. These are the things I observe. 5 things. Let me stress test 5 things. And the 5 is true. So I codified it and said the 5 laws of creation. And I've lived it. What I did all was, because I was selling mutual funds, and buying mutual funds to create wealth. So the first test I did was to hold up generate mutual fund product against the background of the 5 laws. Whether the mutual fund product is in America, Canada, Australia, doesn't matter. Mutual funds, the product basically is a diversified entity. So they may have 100 different stocks in one fund. Why do people buy mutual funds? To create wealth. So I said, let me now see, this was back in 1978. Let me now see whether or not this generic product, mutual funds, will hold up against the background of the 5 laws. Well, as I said, mutual funds, a typical mutual fund will have 100 stocks. Number 1, wealth is created by owning a few high quality businesses. Mike, does your typical generic mutual fund pass or fail? It fails. 100 isn't a few. Secondly, wealth is created by really understanding what you own. If you own 100 different businesses, can you really understand them all? Impossible. So does your typical mutual fund pass or fail? Fails. Number 3, wealth is created by making sure what you own is domiciled in strong long-term growth industries. If you own 100 different stocks in a portfolio called a mutual fund, are you sure they're all in strong long-term growth industries? No. Pass or fail? Fails. Number 4, wealth is created by using other people's money prudently. That's how everybody in the world create wealth. If you own 100 different stocks through a mutual fund, generic mutual fund, anywhere in the world, are you sure you have 100 crackerjack chief financial officers, CFOs? You can't be sure. Therefore, does it pass or fail? It fails. Wealth is created by owning what you own for the long run, for as long as the business remains a great business. If you own the typical mutual fund has a turnover ratio of 80% per year, meaning the stocks are traded and the portfolio is turned over 80% per year. The inverse of that is the average hold period is 14 months. I don't know anyone who buys and sells his or her businesses every 14 months. So does your typical mutual fund pass or fail the fifth law? It fails. So as a young man in Canada in 1978, I thought, one moment, what did I just conclude? That your generic mutual fund product, a product that's bought everywhere in the world, trillions of dollars in this product, is a fraud. It fails on the 5 counts of how wealth is created. Why do people buy mutual funds? To create wealth, yet still the product fails on the 5 counts. This doesn't make any sense. I must be wrong. This Jamaican couldn't be discovering such as a profound discovery. So what I did, I said, okay, I'm going to start a mutual fund that is honest to those 5 principles. So I started a mutual fund with only 15 stocks. And I can understand 15 stocks, especially 15 different businesses, especially if 60% of them, 9, were in the same industry, the industry that I was in, the wealth management industry. So that's what I started a mutual fund with only 15 stocks and went and marked and started selling it. So people say, Mike, this is not a mutual fund. A mutual fund is 100 stocks or 200 stocks. Yours has 15. It's the only one in the world with 15. I said, what do you want? Do you want to own 100 stocks or do you want to create wealth? Which? So that fund, I started it. It had $800,000 of other people's money in it in 1987. By 1997, it had 15 billion. It was totally differentiated, and it was behaving in a way that really addressed clients' needs. So, long-winded answer to a very short question.
Thank you. This is for you, Wayne, from Alicia Myers. I sit in academia, tertiary, where I explore funding, internship, and other opportunities for students. Is there a mechanism for your student-focused initiative to also impact local Jamaicans, especially given that we are now in a context where persons can work virtually?
That's a great question, and it's interesting because we have about 300 or 400 opportunities that corporate Canada has presented to us, and the pandemic has done an incredible thing in terms of location not being part of the criteria for hiring. And in most cases, a lot of the opportunities we're dealing with, the only criteria is how good is your internet access, which is wonderful. There is, especially in the knowledge-based industries, there is a huge number of opportunities that are going unfilled, because there's such a high concentration, especially in technology, of places like Silicon Valley, and those locations are busting at the seams. In Toronto, when we look at the financial industry, the big banks are all here in Toronto. They've taken the approach that if you live anywhere in Canada, they're willing to hire you. What does this mean for folks in the Caribbean? There are going to be a lot of opportunities as businesses widen the aperture for hiring beyond their borders into places like Jamaica, where we have a very well-educated population of students that I expect that there will be a number of businesses open specifically just to take advantage of the talent in Jamaica. So my initiative specifically We are sponsored by our corporate partners to address Canadian college and university students. But I see a future where there will be opportunities for folks elsewhere. I think that the big thing that I would advise, and I'd give the same advice to college and university students in Canada, I think you can see this from the panel, is take advantage of opportunities on the island to learn what good looks like. So many people, students come to me and, they have a great idea and they want to start a business, but they've never actually held a job in that industry. And if you look around the panel, Natasha, Ian, myself, Wes, and Mike, we've all started working for somebody else first to know what good looks like. So I would encourage, all of the folks in Jamaica to take advantage of opportunities in industries you're interested, learn what good looks like before you start to reach out. I believe that there will be an expansion of the types of opportunities that are available to Jamaican students over time because of technology, because we have learned Canadian and US corporations are creating a new muscle that allows them to expand their employment to broader and broader geographies.
Question for Ian. What's the biggest pain you have found in doing business in Jamaica, Ian? Mark Chin wants to know. What's the biggest pain you have found in doing business in Jamaica?
Oh, what's the biggest pain? One of the difficulties is lack of efficiency, I find, dealing with government agencies, dealing right now with the telecommunication companies, just general inefficiencies, things that should take 1 hour, probably takes 1 day, 2 days. So we need to get Jamaica more efficient in the things that we do.
A follow-up question, Ian. How do you handle staff or individuals who have little or no regard for integrity?
Get rid of them.
I guess the only thing to do, if people that don't have integrity and honesty, your staff members, you can't have them. You have to find some way of replacing them. You have to have integrity and honesty in business. It can't work. There's no other replacement for that. So if you find employees that don't have integrity, don't have honesty, they're going to have other bad faults as well, that you have to get rid of them. Simple.
A question from Cecile Levy. She wants to know if you have friends and they want you to invest in their business. I'll ask you to answer this one, Wes. If you have friends and they want you to invest in their business, do you invest for the sake of friendship?
No, because that's an emotional decision. Nobody use emotion to invest, right? You have to be professional about it. Make sure that everything that you're doing is papered. I try to stay away from investing in friends' businesses because sometimes it comes down to, do you cherish the relationship over the business, right? Because if something goes south, how are you going to view that relationship moving forward? So, and that's why I mentioned earlier on about making sure that person is the first person that you pay back, right? I have invested with friends and behind friends, but it is, it's fraught with, with danger when you do that. So I prefer to stay away from it. But that said, if your friend have a fantastic idea, you've known them for a long time, you see how they operate, they're professional about doing that, then, you want to support them, right? And, but you're not doing it because of the emotional feeling of investing behind them. It's like supporting them in the sense that they're going to make you money and you want to see them succeed. And you know that they're going to treat you well in return. I have, on the other hand, done business with friends, and it's always turned out well because those people are very professional about how they do business. They don't take our friendship for granted in terms of doing business. Again, different between invested and doing business with. And we've in a lot of cases, our relationship got a lot stronger and better as a result of having that connection with doing business together. And I find that when we do that as well, I work harder for them to be successful. One of my really best friends in Canada is the chairman of one of the largest law firms in the world. And him and I have been friends for over 20 years, and we do a lot of work together. And when we do, we just make each other shine. I make him look good, and he makes me look good. And as a result of that, we have a really strong relationship.
Another question, Wes, from Patricia Henry. Hi, Wes. I'm from St. Thomas, too, given our size here in Jamaica. If you were you to choose one growth emerging sector to expand in 2021, what would that be?
Well, that's a tough question. I think that's where Mike would come in handy with answering that question, and Ian probably, because in Canada, for example, the infrastructure sector is one that's environmental services, construction infrastructure is one that's really, taking off. Healthcare is a big deal over here. But in terms of Jamaica, again, I wouldn't know where to begin to do that. But that's probably a question that Mike may want to take.
Before he takes it to another question, because the questions are coming in fast and furious, I'm just trying to get through as many as possible. Naomi Garrick, good morning. Observer team, kudos to an amazing masterclass. For each panelist, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self about life and money? Let's start with you, Natasha. So, for each panelist, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self about life and money?
I would give my 25-year-old self the advice of being fearless. A lot of times it's the self-doubt in the beginning that stops a lot of people from accomplishing what it is that they actually want to accomplish. It would definitely be, I would have been more fearless. The one thing that I always emphasize that I knew at 25 years old, that I had to work really hard and really, really smart. And as far as money was concerned, I grew up pretty much poor. So I was never foolish with my money. I always knew how to invest my money in the right places. So as far as money is concerned, it's the same. I'm very smart with my money. Like Wes said, you can't be emotional. You can't invest with your friends just because they're your friends. You have to believe in the product, believe in your friend, and things of that sort. So to my 25-year-old self, for me, I would have been much more fearless than I am today. I'm not afraid of failing. I'm not afraid of making choices that don't necessarily turn out right, because it has built me into a far more confident person. It builds my courage and things of that sort. But as far as money is concerned, I've just always been really, really smart with that money because I grew up not having any. So I valued every penny that I had to this day.
Wayne.
It's a really good question. I was thinking about what Natasha said, and I agree with her. I think that not being afraid to fail. I think, one of the things that I was very cautious when I started my first startup, and I didn't take full advantage of the opportunities that were in front of me because I was really, really cautious. I was so afraid of failure. I was so afraid of being branded a failure. It wasn't so much how much money I would lose. It was the perception of me that I have failed. What I've come to learn over time is that's the only way you learn. And I would encourage people to fail. And I don't say to be silly about the failures. I mean, educated failures are really, I think I would have been more aggressive when I was younger. I used to think to myself, well, if I lose everything, I can move back home with my mother and live in the basement, which I love my mother. It's not about such a bad place to be. But I think that was probably the biggest thing. I really was very conscious. And I think as Black people, especially dealing in a very white industry, we take on this burden when we go out on our own to start a business, and we're so afraid to fail for ourselves, being branded a failure, for others to because we don't just represent ourselves, we represent we feel this burden of representing everyone. As one of the first tech CEOs in Canada, I felt this burden that I just didn't take all the risks that I should have. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that if I had to go back and look at my approach at 25, I would probably take more risk.
Ian?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned 25, because 25 was the age that I went on my own, that I left my family business, which was the Levy family was a very successful business, and today they still are. But at 25, I decided to start my own business. And what I did was, which I've done from all my life, is to think out the box. I think of things that other people are not doing that can make money. And when I identify that thing, then I find ways of making it happen. And that's my recommendation. Think about things that other people are not doing, but what the world needs, or what Jamaica needs, and find a way to supply or do that thing. And have confidence in yourself that you will be successful. Don't care what other people think about you or what other people think about what you're going to do. Just have belief in yourself and what you're doing, and go ahead and do it.
Thank you.
That's my recommendation.
Mike?
So, I've always believed that, well, in hindsight, I think success in any endeavor, in any area of life, whether you want to become the best prime minister or the best student or the best athlete or the best business person or the best parent, if you follow the following two dogmas, I think it will lead you in the right direction. The first is you have to govern your behavior by frameworks, principles, a value system, firstly. Secondly, you have to be able to control your emotions. And the only way to control your emotions is to be absolute in what your values are, in what your principles are. They are not relative, they're absolute. And lastly, thirdly, you have to have access. So framework, control your emotions, and access. And by the way, you need all three to be successful. If you have two out of three, it's not good enough. In terms of framework, there's a second dogma that comes to mind. And to develop framework that are pragmatic, long-term sustainable, real, firstly, identify a role model. Who is that one person who is the best in the world that you want to beat? Is it Usain Bolt in sprinting? Is it Warren Buffett in creating wealth? And is it whomever, the best in the world? So identify a role model. Secondly, get the recipe from the role model. And today it's easy. You can Google, you can study, you can watch videos, etc., etc. The role model, recipe, and thirdly, don't put your thumbprint on the recipe. Don't change it. Execute the recipe faithfully. And if you do those three things, you will end up with the same outcome as your role model.
Thank you. Wes? I love that you smiled when he said, "Don't change, don't change the recipe."
Oh, don't change the recipe, man. Don't put your thumbprint on it. I love that. I'm writing down a lot of these things because, I want to join that unicorn club that, man, and it's not too late for me. So I want to join that club. So I'm writing down notes copiously. So,
Me too, Wes.
good. So I'm a little bit in Ian's camp with respect to early starters. I got married when I was 22 years old. And, my wife and I were still married. We have 5 kids together. So I started really early. And I had, remember I told you I was in the mailroom when we got married. And when I was 25 years old, I got an opportunity to get out of the mailroom. And I was taking courses to qualify to become what we call a law clerk here, which is one level below a lawyer. And, but I had no experience because I was a mail guy. And I applied for this position that I shouldn't get. And because I had nothing to lose. And I applied for the position. And I got an interview with the general counsel of the largest broadcasting company in the country and their HR manager. And I'm sitting there in front of these people, had no business being there. And my resume clearly shows that I had no business being there. And they interviewed me about the job of being his right-hand person, the general counsel. But I was so impressed by this guy. This guy was 35 years old, and he wanted to be the CEO of the company. And he told me that in an interview. And he said, I want somebody who's going to take over for me, somebody I can mold and influence and all that. And I was so excited. I really sold him on that interview. And when I went back to my work, I was telling my colleagues about it in the mailroom. They said, "Are you crazy? Aren't you afraid they're going to fire you if you don't know what you're doing?" And I said, "I have nothing to lose. I'll just come back to the mailroom. What do I have to lose?" They hired me to do that job. As Mike said, that find a role model. That man became my role model. See, failure can be paralyzing. If you're afraid to fail, it paralyzes you and then you don't act, right? I figured that I had nothing to lose, but I have everything to gain by learning from that man. And until this day, I'm like this with that man, this close. We're tight. We talk practically every day. We've known, he's watched my career grow, and he's been with me every step of the way. And in fact, we're now neighbors. We live in the same neighborhood. He actually put my name down as his reference. He's looking for a job. And he's proud to tell people that he mentored me. And, so when Michael said, find role models, that is absolutely critical early in your career. Early. At 25, I was lucky I found this man. And as a result of that, I had a lot of confidence because he would just tell me, hey, here's how you do things. And the beauty about how he taught me was, I didn't have an ego because I had so much to learn. Sometimes when somebody talk a little bit rough at us or yell at us a little bit, we get upset and we want to quit. That happened to me. I remember he was upset at me one day, like 2 weeks into the job. And I'm like, I'm quitting. I'm getting out of here. I called my wife up and I'm quitting today. And my wife said to me, don't be stupid. We have a child at home and we have to put diaper on that kid. Don't quit. Come home and let's talk about it. We came home and talked about it. And the word quit came up in my brain again. And that man became my closest ally up until this day. So don't worry about it. When somebody's teaching you, sometimes they're a little bit brash and they're a little bit sharp. Just take that with a grain of salt. Just think about what they're teaching you and put the ego aside, and you're going to be able to learn so much more. So if you have the ability to get somebody like that in your life early, take it. You have nothing to lose.
Aisha Panton, you've answered that question, Wes. Aisha Panton wants to know, at your stage of success, do you still have mentors? If you ever did, outside the books, how do you keep learning and evolving? Natasha, how do you keep learning and evolving?
I must say, I feel excited that Michael Leachin said exactly what I do. I identify people that I want to emulate and I follow their recipe. So yay. So it is so factual. I've never heard, because my community, I got to tell you, from a little kid growing up in Carroll City, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't know anybody besides my teachers. So I always looked to the outside world. So that is why I read so much, because I knew there was a bigger world out there. And I wanted to find people. Oprah Winfrey was the person that I admired most, I got to tell you. I wanted to do everything like Oprah. And today, there's numerous women, because I don't have to go to an encyclopedia. I don't have to watch TV anymore. I can use my cell phone right here. And anytime I need some motivation, I go to numerous people that I admire. I read their stories. I look at their recipes, and I emulate just that. Not putting your thumbprint on it? Absolutely. Just follow it. Just move through. Trust the process. It worked for them. It's going to work for you as long as you put in the hard work.
Wayne?
You know, I wasn't fortunate enough to have a mentor, but, you know, philosophically, what I try to do is just surround myself with like-minded people. You know, there were a few of us that were going through a similar situation. We were all of the same age, had the same sorts of struggles working in Silicon Valley as Black engineers. And we spent a lot of time together, and we shared, you know, things that were happening. We didn't always have the right answer, but at least we shared it, and we had folks to talk to. I think, you know, one of the reasons Silicon Valley is because of the gravitational pull of high performing engineers to that particular location. And the synergy that's created by having so many like-minded people thinking about the same kinds of problems. I think if you can find an environment, if you can't find a role model, because you know, all the people on this panel, I'm sure, get asked by numerous people to be a mentor. We can only do so much in one-on-one mentorships. But if in lieu of having a single mentor, I would encourage you to surround yourself with like-minded, passionate people that share a mindset, that want to solve a similar problem to you, in order to get that kind of guidance and mentorship that can make you successful.
Ian, when somebody actually wants, you know, Nicole McFarlane, Ian wants yourself and Mike to, as a possible mentor. She says she has over 2 decades of Wall Street experience. But as Wayne said, I'm sure you have 100 people calling you every single day. So what's your take on mentorship, Ian?
I think it's very important that for people that are perceived to be successful in whatever field, that they should pass their experience and their knowledge to younger people. I think, for example, that all of us, particularly being Jamaicans, all of us on this panel are all Jamaicans, that we should get involved in the schools that we went to and to have mentorship there with the schools. I think it's very important that they can look on us who they admire or think that we are successful, and to give our various formulas as to how we arrived at where we have arrived at. I'm sure I hear some of the panels say that they have the same formula, the same recipe. I might have a totally different recipe, but it is a recipe, and it has worked for me, and it might work for other people. So it's very important on membership, absolutely. And we should start this by, obviously, the schools that we went to in Jamaica.
How do you keep learning and evolving, Ian?
I think that you have to keep learning and evolving because I think that the world changes dramatically almost every day. I mean, if you look at this pandemic that we're going through, nobody can say today what we're going to do next week, where we're going to travel next week, what we're going to, which direction we're going to go, because every single day there is something to learn about this new pandemic and what it does and what it doesn't do and what we need to do and what we don't need to do. So we have to keep learning. And the only way to keep learning is to listen to other people, to read as much as possible, and to follow the news, although plenty of the news is fake, but you have to decide what is fake and what is not fake. As I say, you just have to keep exercising your mind, because every day is something different. Not every other day. Every day is something different.
Thank you. Michael Lee Chin, how do you keep learning and evolving? Aisha Panton wants to know.
Well, every job that I have had to do, if I had made an application to do that job, I'd have been turned down because I was never trained to do any of the job that I had to do. I was never trained to be a salesman or an engineer. I was never trained to be a portfolio manager. I was a salesman. I was never trained to be a chairman when I bought National Commercial Bank. Nor did I know the rudiments of banking. So I had to learn on the job. So it's just, Wayne said it, you have to be comfortable swimming upstream and being comfortable, being uncomfortable. So recently I became a board member of a German company, one of the unicorns. It's called ITM out of Munich. And the ITM, this is a wonderful company. It's solving cancer. It's the infrastructure for targeted radionuclide therapy, which is attacking cancer with molecular radiation. We radiate cancer at the cell level, not just, which will be disruptional to external beam radiation. So that's a whole new area of treatment that is being disruptive to external beam radiation and chemotherapy. So I had to, because I invested in the company, I had to immerse myself in it and become not an expert, but sufficiently strong to understand it, to be able to invest in it. So remember, one of the laws of wealth creation is that you have to understand what you own. So that word understand is always a driver to keep you on your feet in terms of always learning and learning new things. When my twin daughters were 2.5 years old, one night I came back and I looked at these girls and I thought, wow, look at how much these girls have learned in 6 months. Mike, what have you learned that's really new, relatively speaking, in the last 6 months? Oh my gosh, relative to them, not much. So that forced me, to take on challenges, doing things that I have absolutely no knowledge of, and just get involved with them.
Thank you very much. Last word to you, Wes.
Yeah, I would say that I'm always learning, and I'm always taking on difficult challenges without knowing what the outcome is going to look like. I look at the Black North Initiative that I started last year. Folks say to me that, well, it's kind of like starting Kingsdale all over again, Wes. And I said, actually, not really, because if I failed at starting Kingsdale, I would be disappointing myself and my family. Whereas if I fail with Black North, I'm disappointing a whole generation of Black people in this country, 1.3 million of them. and it will be public. The failure will be public. And but that's how people get things done, when they do things that are completely outside their comfort zone, and everything is on the line for their success. I have a lot of people that I look up to because of what they've achieved. I remember when I was a young guy starting out on Bay Street, and Michael talk about his portfolio management company and stuff, and I read his story and I go, I want to be like that guy one day, and even today there's other people who've accomplished amazing things that I go, I want to be like that person one day. And it's not necessarily because that person is wealthy, is the things that that person is doing with their privilege and power that I go, I would love to emulate them in using my privilege and power the same way they're using theirs. And, so sometimes we look at success as, how much money do we have in our bank account? But we should have a different way of viewing success, because, on our tombstone, it's never going to say how much money we've made and how many people we've made wealthy. It's going to talk about the person that we were when we're alive and the good that we've done to humanity. And that's how I kind of measure success, the way that my kids look at me, the way my wife look at me, and are they proud of what I've done? And are they disappointed, in things that I've done? So when you think about what you want to be in life, you have to start early to figure out what kind of human being you want to be. And then just do the things that make you uncomfortable to accomplish those things.
Nicely said. The Jamaica Observer webinar series, Charting Your Financial Course. What a pleasure and a privilege it has been to sit here and to listen. The good thing is that if you've registered, you can continue to listen and hear and make notes every single night until you get it right, because this webinar will be on the Observer platform. Thank you very much, Natasha Main, the Vogue attorney. Thank you very much, Ian Levy, Chairman, E&K Agencies. Michael Lee Chin, Chairman, Portland Holdings. Wayne Purbu, entrepreneur and co-founder of the Onyx Initiative. And Wesley J. Hall, not to be mistaken with a cricketer, especially because West Indies are not doing very well right now. Executive Chair and founder, Kingsdale Advisor, founder and Executive Chair, Black North Initiative. Thank you very, very, very much for sending the elevator back down. With your power, with your privilege, you have truly set our course, for the beginning of this year. Not sure what we're going to do for an encore, but I'm sure Natalie will have an idea by the time we leave here. But thank you very much. You're all very busy people, and I know you've got to get back. Interesting to ask why he stood for the entire webinar. But that's for another webinar series. But
can I answer that?
Yes, please.
Let me answer that. Here's a story. I've always stand up in my office on Bay Street and here because I view myself as being in a position where I don't belong. That status is reserved for somebody who went to Harvard or Yale and who were trained to become that person and sit in that office. And I've always said, one day, somebody's going to walk in and say, hey, what are you doing in my office? And I don't have to worry about getting up out of a chair because I'm comfortable. I just walk out and say, hey, I was fixing your computer. I was the IT guy, right? So I've been standing up for over 20 years and I continue to stand up because of that insecurity that one day this is going to be given to somebody else or the rightful owner is going to come and claim it.
Guess what? You five are our amazing rock stars, and the success will continue. Thank you very much to NCB Capital Markets Limited, Flow, and of course the Jamaica Observer newspaper. And thank you very much, guys. And Natasha.
Thank you.
It's time to take advantage of investment opportunities. With your NCB Online access, you can open your investment account online in less than 10 minutes using GoIPO. Simply log in to GoIPO using your NCB Online banking credentials. Provide us with the required personal information, upload your proof of address. And that's it. You will instantly receive an email with your account information. No account opening deposit required. Investment opportunities are waiting for you. Visit goipo.jncb.com today.
Your business is your world. Technology can make your business more profitable. At CNW Business, we understand your challenges and we provide solutions and support, all scalable, to support business at every level. Data center hosting, security and data protection, sales and business solutions, e-commerce transaction support. Just imagine what we could do for your efficiency and profitability. CNW Business. We are IT.